The German government cannot exceed a deficit of 0.35% of annual GDP except in emergencies. This rule came into force in 2016, was suspended during the coronavirus pandemic and energy crisis, and reinstated in 2024. Critics argue it limits investment in defense and infrastructure. Due to political instability and potential higher US tariffs, growth projections for 2025 have been reduced.
Der Jahreswirtschaftsbericht.
There is an increasing demand for loans, including construction loans, and building permits are also on the rise. But overall, Germany is stuck in stagnation. We are reducing the forecast for economic growth from 1%, 1.1% to 0.3%.
Decarbonizing the economy requires 782 billion euros by 2030. Young activists keep the climate issue in focus.
We don't have a choice as young people. Many of us can't vote now. I'm going to be able to vote for the first time. But no matter what, we know that change comes from the streets. And if we don't go out and fight for better climate, nobody's going to do it our place.
While in Germany for the Munich Security Summit, US Vice President J.D. Vance met the far-right AfD leader and endorsed the party, which Berlin dismissed as unwelcome election interference.
But indeed, J.D. Vance met with the far-right candidate, Alice Weidel, as he has done, or as members of the Trump government have done with other far-right leaders across the EU. So you can see a clear attempt to build closer, let's say, ideology-based and party-based relationships here. That is, of course, an issue for transatlantic relations going forward.
The AfD, known for anti-migrant rhetoric, is endorsed by Elon Musk, who hosted a live chat with Alice Weidel and joined a rally. In 2024, Pew Research found 26% of German men and 11% of women viewed the AfD positively, with men's support rising 10 points since 2022.
As a matter of fact, most construction sites in Germany are now packed with people, not with the German names Andreas or Stefan, but their names are Mohammed, Ashraf or Mustafa. And we need these people, and they're a part of our society.
Success of fringe parties like AfD and BSW could hinder mainstream parties' ability to pass reform, as that would require two-thirds majority in both chambers. Friedrich Merz, leader of the centre-right opposition and favourite for Chancellor, has mixed views on the deficit limit. His CDU party wants the limit in place, but he is open to reform. In a debate with centre-left Scholz, Merz was vague about the topic. Scholz's SPD, possibly a coalition partner, supports loosening the rules to boost investment, a view shared by the Greens. The new ruling coalition's composition after the February 23 election will determine reform possibilities. The Economic Brief, DD India. Well, Prasenjit Basu is still with us. Mr. Basu, now some voters believe that any government would be better than the current government that's in office. That's pretty bad anti-incumbency, one would think. But what really is required to kickstart the German economy?
Well, unfortunately, Germany shot itself in the foot because Germany used to get about 55% of its energy needs from Russia. And it went along with the US demand, the Biden administration's demand to impose a complete ban on imports of Russian energy. In the end, it wasn't a complete ban, but nonetheless, that basically killed off the German economy, which has been stagnant, in fact, has contracted for each of the last 2 years. This year, they're predicting 0.3% growth, but there's no guarantee that it'll grow at all. So basically, there is a fundamental problem, and the debt brake is a big issue. 0.35% of GDP is ludicrous, especially given the fact that the public debt is less than 60% of GDP. So if any country has room for a fiscal stimulus, it is Germany. But there is, the previous government was hamstrung by the demands of parties like the FDP, which did not want to loosen the debt brake. So that has to go. But more importantly, I think Germany needs to reassess the whole approach to foreign policy, immigration, and that is basically reflected in the electorate. So the AfD is looking as if it's going to come second.
Yeah, sure.
That is huge. The AfD, so-called far right, is actually headed by a woman who is gay. So it's a very interesting situation. They call them far right. The mainstream media calls them far right, but they're just right wing in the sense that they want less ideological adherence to the Western alliance, NATO, etc., and a freer foreign policy and controls on immigration. But the AfD is going to do very well in this election.
Right.
The Linke Party, which is the former communists of East Germany, are almost certainly going to be another factor, and BSW, which is another left-wing party. So those three parties are going to potentially hold the balance of power in the new Bundesrat.
But so Germany is not the only sick man in Europe currently, because after all, after what J.D. Vance said at the Munich summit, and the US took that stance on Ukraine, so Europe would have to really start spending more on Ukraine, because that's what they've committed themselves to doing. And there's not enough money to spare. I mean, it's all scarce, isn't it?
Well, I don't think Europe is going to spend much money on Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine was dependent primarily on American logistics, weaponry, etc., most of which is going to go. Europe cannot replace the United States as a military supporter of Ukraine. And so I think that story is more or less ending. What the US wants, it will more or less get on the Russia-Ukraine front. But what is important for Germany and Europe is now to try and get its own house in order. Germany, in particular, needs a different social compact, and perhaps there will be a broad coalition government of CDU-CSU and the SPD. But the current polls suggest that they will together get only about 45% of the vote, so they will not be able to form a government on their own.
Right.
Keeping the AfD out means that they become the main opposition, and Merz, the CDU leader, is saying very clearly that this may be the last chance before AfD comes to power the next time around. So whether to keep them out of the tent or to bring them into a coalition is a key question. The Netherlands has gone along with Geert Wilders.
Yes.
Essentially his party now leads
right.
the Netherlands government, and something similar will eventually have to happen in Germany. The so-called far right will almost certainly have to be part of the coalition at some point in the future, and the key is to address the issue of immigration, which I think Angela Merkel, the previous CDU chancellor, went a bit too far in allowing a massive influx of Syrian refugees.
Sure.
And there may be an opportunity to send those Syrians back now that Syria has got a change of government.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Prasenjit Basu. Thank you for joining us here on the Economic Brief.